I promise this will put you ahead of 99% of the people that you know. Hi, my name is Tommy Wright, and I'm a six-figure entrepreneur that just recently bought a Subway franchise using absolutely none of my own money. And in this video, I want to outline what allowed me to get this success. And the reason why I put success in quotations, because ultimately, it's all relative in my opinion. So like my level that I deem successful is not the same level that society deems successful. So because I own a Subway franchise, because I was making six figures before that, people have deemed me successful. And success in the average eye is just in comparison to the masses. So when you look at it that way, yes, a 22-year-old usually does not make six figures or buys a franchise. So I can kind of understand why a lot of people would deem me as successful for my age. But in my opinion, to my standards, I'm not successful yet. But here are some of the traits that allowed me to gain this amount of success at this age. Okay, so the first thing is kind of cliche. Like a lot of people are like, well, of course. But a lot of people actually never take a step of completing this task. So I think seeking and learning new information is one of the things that single-handedly blew up my growth tremendously. Quick story, when I was in App State and I was kind of, in between, should I keep playing football or should I be an entrepreneur? I was surfing the internet like a crazy guy. So like I was all on YouTube, watching all these different podcasts. I learned all these different entrepreneurs. And of course I was like feeling a high of motivation, like, hey, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. But usually the stuff on YouTube and YouTube alone won't really get you to the next step. So what I did after having days and hours of just watching videos, I found a specific mentor that I was like, hey, I'm going to pay this guy to teach me, whatever he knows, because he has a lot more money than me. He knows something that I don't. So what I did was I used pretty much my last $2,000. I had to borrow $1,000 from my mom, and I bought his course, and I did not make money from that course until I left college, and it was 6 months in. So I didn't make $1. And all I did was learn, fail. And once I hit the 6-month mark was when I finally made $1,000. And then when I hit the 7th month mark, I made $4,000. And then when I hit 8, I hit 12. So you can kind of see how kind of the snowball effect happened. But the thing is, a lot of people would have given up after that, that first 6 months of not seeing something. But if I wasn't optimistic enough to buy that information, I would have never been able to build the first business that I built, which was an asset recovery firm. I would have never made that amount of money that I was making. And that was all because I knew how important information was to me, because I believe that nobody's any different than me. The only thing that separates me from them is that they know something that I don't. So I was like, okay, how about I just buy whatever knowledge that they're selling? And hopefully it's good knowledge. Of course, there's scams out there, but I'm going to go ahead and gamble on myself and say, hey, if they just give me the information that they use to be successful, I can kind of tailor that to what I'm good at, which is following through and make some money. So that's what I did, and it just so happened to work out for me. So my first trait that I believe helped me to get to the success that I have now is I was willing to buy information, and I was ready to learn. So the second reason that's kind of tangent to the first reason is that I execute on information. So I don't get information just for the sake of information. Like Alex Hormozi says this all the time, is like mental masturbation of you just watching motivational videos that, in turn won't do anything for you. And I learned that motivation gets you started, good habits keep you going. So when you don't have any motivation, those good habits will keep you rolling. So when I get information or I get something that makes me super optimistic, where I'm like, oh my God, I can do that. And that's before I actually get to the hard part of it. I like to execute on it. So like when I learn something, I want to execute on it. I don't read just to read. Promise. I don't really like reading. I don't watch videos just to watch videos to feel good about, the thing that I could be doing or the next thing I might possibly do. Of course, that comes with it. But after that, on the other side of that wall, I'm going to execute on whatever that information is. So I think you're doing yourself a disfavor of when you take in all this content, you pay somebody to teach you something, and you go through it half-assly, or you go through the full thing and do absolutely nothing with the information that you got. Whether it was free, bought, borrowed, I don't care. Whatever it is, I'm going to execute on whatever I think will help me get to the next level. So I think that helped me a lot. Is a lot of people my age don't execute on a lot of things because they don't have the information. And then number two, they don't execute on the information because they're scared. And in the current situation I'm in, I don't have any kids. I don't have a wife. Like I don't have things that have me so rooted to where I have to be so afraid of failure and risk to where I am just pulling the trigger on everything that I think will help me in the future. So like, that's just some small advice that I have for somebody that's like my age is like, bro, what are you waiting on? Like you're scared to do something, but believe me, it gets a lot scarier the farther you move along in life. And that's not to down anybody that have kids or anything like that. You just have to move a lot more careful than somebody that doesn't have any. And that's just brutally honest. Like I can do whatever. Worst case scenario, I go back and live with my mom. Nobody's affected but me. Not my kids, not my wife. Nobody's affected but me. So I'm really fast to execute on information. So that's I think that's one thing that helps me a lot is I execute a lot faster than other people. People say success loves speed, and I believe it. But I think success loves even more execution. Another trait that I think allowed me to get to the point that I am today is that when I was to fail, I took the failure, and then on the other side of the failure, I'm like, okay, what can I do to correct this? Because in my honest to God opinion, and it's starting to formulate a lot more as I move along in like business and stuff, is that I think all business is just a series of moves. Like it's honest to God, just a series of moves. Sometimes you make the wrong move, and then sometimes you have to make moves to correct that wrong move, which is fine. The problem is the general population or regular or just regular people that want to like dibble and dabble in entrepreneurship but don't want to be fully in it will hit a roadblock and say, okay, this is probably not for me. Or hit a roadblock and say, okay, I don't know what to do. Let me try something else. And by something else, I mean something totally off tangent. You've been building up this thing for the last 2 or 3 years. You hit like the biggest roadblock you've ever seen in your life. And you're like, hey, I'm just going to stop and do something else. I think that stops a lot of people more than anything. So me personally, when I had a failure come by, and it happened in every single industry that I had, where there was a hurdle, a roadblock, something happened. And I was just like, okay, this happened. Let's fix it. And let's figure out how it won't happen again. And let's figure out a plan to make it not as bad. So like, let's say I did something that, I maybe ran a ad wrong or a campaign wrong or my release or my drop just didn't do well, right? And I'm not going to sit there and say, okay, well, maybe I gotta, this just isn't for me. No, we're going to tweak it. Like I said, I believe business is just a series of moves, and the people that are the best in business are good at making pivots fast and good at making sound pivots. And that's kind of the strategies that I'm learning now. And that's kind of the core traits I'm trying to take in, is that when something does not go as planned or something does go wrong, make sure that I can just change the input to get a different output. That's pretty much it. A lot of people, like a lot of early entrepreneurs will like something will happen and then it'll be like an end all be all. And that's not how I kind of maneuvered throughout my early adulthood that allowed me to get to success now. So as I started to get a little bit of success, just trying to move you down to the timeline, I started to pay for a lot of like events. So I was paying to be around people that were millionaires. I was paying to be around people that made $100 million a year. Like Patrick Bet-David's event, I've been there twice. I've traveled to Miami. So a lot of my income, I was just putting back into myself. And I think that helped me a lot, because one thing it did is humble me that you're actually not doing anything. So like when I was making, $40,000 a month, I was reminded that I wasn't doing anything when people were making $10 million a month. I was in rooms where people were talking about the problems of their business. And I'm like, yeah, we just can't get past the $100 million mark for this year. What? Like you can't get past 100 million? I haven't even hit 1 million. Like when you get around those type of people, it makes you actually open up your mind to like, I'm not doing that much. And maybe you're not in that, and that's okay. But being around those people brings you up. So like when you hang around people that are like here and you're here, they can pull you up a lot faster than if you hang with somebody that's like right here. So like, of course I got my people that I'm close to. I got my homeboys, all that. But then at the end of the day, I want to be around people that are here so I can move up a lot faster. And when I went to a lot of those events, it worked. You leave motivated. And at the best events, you leave with actual tactical steps that you can employ into your business or into your personal development or whatever. And that's how Patrick Bet-David's thing was when I went down there for the last 2 years. Is he'll give you tactical things, but then he'll also put you in a sea that's full of sharks. And you're just like a little fish, and you're like, man, I want to be a shark. So being around people helped me get to where I want to be ultimately, because it allowed me to kind of raise the ceiling of what I think is possible. Like when you hear $1 million a month, like some people are like, oh my God, I can't even fathom that. Other people are like, $1 million a month. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's how I am now. And I'm nowhere near that. And I'm just like, if somebody's like, yeah, I do $1 million a year, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like, cool. I mean, I've heard people that do $100 million a year. Not to downplay it. I'm just saying like my ceiling is a lot higher now from being around people that are worth a lot more than me. And I feel like it's slowly bringing me up to be around those type of people. And before I get into this next thing, I want to kind of put a story around it. So I go to CrossFit, right? And the owner of the CrossFit, his name's Andy, and a really down to earth guy, really cool guy. He has 2 rules. His first rule is to show up, right? To show up. His second rule is don't do anything that will stop you from coming in and showing up the next day, right? Those are the only 2 rules that he has. And let me tell you why I believe that this is significant, especially in what I've been able to accomplish over the last couple of years. And I didn't even know this until I thought about it maybe like a couple of days ago. With entrepreneurship, it's okay to take breaks. And by take breaks, I mean like a day, honestly. But I believe the hardest part and the most significant part is just continue to show up. And it sounds cliche because you're like, of course you got to show up. Of course you got to do that. But you don't know how many people don't do it. And if you're an entrepreneur, you know how hard it can be to show up sometimes. All you got to do is show up. Show up. And then the second rule is like, don't do anything that will stop you from showing up. So like in business, just to compare the two, or just to bring the two together to kind of bring the story full circle, is in business, sometimes when you get knocked hard, when something that you want to do doesn't go your way, when the launch doesn't go your way, when this business strategy that you have to grow your content, to grow your audience, to grow your sales doesn't work, you spend a lot of time on it and it doesn't work, it makes it a lot harder to show up the next day. And I'm saying that from full experience. And I'm sure other entrepreneurs can appreciate the same thing. You work on something so long and you're expecting a certain output and you don't get it. It makes it a lot harder to show up the next day with the same enthusiasm. A lot harder. And my CrossFit is the exact same. We do a hell of a workout. It makes it a lot harder to come in the next day. Let's say you get defeated the first day, you don't want to come in the next day. That's just humans. We want to avoid failure. That's just what it is. So Andy, when he says that to me, and I kind of relate that to business, I'm like, you're right. Show up every day no matter what. I'd rather show up and only be able to give 30% than not show up and give 100% every 2 months. I'd rather show up every single day, and maybe one day I give 100, one day I get 60, because guess what? It'll start to add up. It'll start to add up. It'll start to add up. And I'm realizing that in business, it's all starting to unfold for me now. So it's like, you want to learn marketing. Okay, you learn ads. Once you learn ads, what do you learn? How to make pixels, how to make the pixel optimized for the best ad. Okay, cool. Then you learn copywriting to make the even better ad. Okay, then you learn this, then you learn that, then you learn sales process, then you learn all this stuff. And then after a while, once you sit back and look, those days that you gave 185, 60 something percent, 40 something percent every single day, man, it's just a lot different versus trying to give 100 and then take off some days and then come back. So like, that's one thing I think that helped me a lot is I showed up pretty much every single day. Every day I showed up. Even if it wasn't 100%, I showed up. I was still here. I'm learning something. I'm doing something. And I think that helped me a lot on my path to, get into where I am right now. All right, and my last thing, and I kind of touched on it, is to be optimistic through friction. And what I mean by that is like, not everything's gonna be like a smooth sailing thing. Not everything's just gonna be, straight downhill. You got momentum, you got steam, everything's working. Everything's not gonna be firing on the same pin all the time. It's not. That's just life. And damn sure in business, it's not gonna be happening. Sometimes things are gonna be good. Sometimes things are gonna be bad. Hills and valleys. That's just what it is. But the thing is when you're going through a valley or you're going through friction, have the same optimistic character as when you were going down with momentum, as when you were, picking up in your business, when you were picking up in life. Have that same optimistic attitude. And the reason why I say that is because that stuff will keep you, it'll keep you going. It'll carry you, because we all have those pitfalls. But I think when I had pitfalls, I was kind of excited because I'm like, now I got something to learn. And then since I got something to learn, this won't happen to me again. And since this won't happen to me again, guess what? I'm kind of like building armor on my suit. So it's like, I learned okay, I can't do this because this will do something. I got stabbed. Boom. This is armor. I can't do this in business because this hurts me. Armor. And then after a while, you build up so much armor that a lot of things can't stop you. And I think that's how a lot of these business tycoons end up becoming business tycoons, is because they take so many hits that they know what's coming. They have enough armor to go to the next thing. So being optimistic through friction or through something that you don't expect to go a certain way that it does will help you a lot in the long run, and it helped me get to where I am. All right, so yeah, this is a long video. I just kind of had this on my chest about I just have a lot of young people that ask me like, hey, what's your best advice? How can I do X, Y, and Z? And I believe that these traits will allow you to get to whatever level that you want to get to early. And I appreciate you guys for coming back to the channel. So if you're an OG viewer, I appreciate you for coming back. If you're new to the channel, go ahead, subscribe. Like I said, I just want to drop value. And I will see you guys on the next video.